over here. Lovely. What's happening, everybody? So, sneaking in a live show here. It's going to be a bit of a short show. But what I wanted to talk about is, well, this is going to be like the live version of a standalone video that I'm going to be putting together. And it's basically like, don't be that guy. If you're taking your vehicle to get tuned, or you're taking it to a shop, basically what the etiquette kind of sort of is and what to expect and some things that you may get offended by that you shouldn't be getting offended by. I want to set you up for failure. I want to try to set you up for success here, but one of the issues that I have had over the years is, managing expectations for what you're going to find as a result of whatever work and whatever money that you're putting into this project. And it's also dealing with some of the misconceptions that folks have been fed, the wrong information that folks have been fed before they get into putting one of these projects together. So I'm going to let some folks get in the live and then we will dive into it. And again, this is just kind of a preemptive thing. I like doing this every once in a while. Before I put a standalone video out, I'll kind of fan it out a little bit as part of the live. And that's really kind of what I'm doing with this one. So that's why there's really no title to the show tonight. It says B. Mason is live. We're going to be talking about what to expect, what not to say in some cases, and to get you guys the best results possible. So let me check in. Looks like we've got some folks in. Itch is in. Jebediah is in. Ryan, what is up? Sovereign is in. Got the flex. Got the bald guy with the shades and the right cadence. Man, I got stuff all over me. I've been working on bikes. So, and my wife's Jeep, as a matter of fact. But so let's go ahead and dive into this because I get the impression that a lot of folks have got the wrong idea of what to expect when you go to a shop to get your car worked on. So when you first decide that you're going to get your car worked on, one of the first things you're going to have to sort out is the money. Guys, it costs money to do this. This is not a video game where you just beep boop bop bop beep and the car is faster, it has more power, or whatever. There are real parts that have to go onto a real car, and all of that takes money to make it happen. One of the worst things you can do is get really worked up about putting a project together. Try to do your due diligence. You're talking to multiple shops, trying to get all the information that you can. You're wearing these guys out, and the reality is that you're 2 years away from putting together the project. I'm not saying you got to have all the money ready to go, but there is a huge component of the money situation that you're going to have to make sure that you've reconciled before you dive into this. Get an idea for what you want. Make sure you've got a plan and work the plan. But let's talk about billing and let's talk about where the money really does start to become real. So before you start shelling out the money, you need to be doing your due diligence on what shops you need to be working with for whatever car or truck or motorcycle that you're going to be working with. The big portion of this is going to be reputation. Have they worked on your car before? Do not come into modifying your vehicle looking to save money somewhere. Like, I get it, we all have budgets, but the fact of the matter is sometimes things cost what they cost, right? A gallon of milk might be $4, okay? Well, $4 is what you better have in your pocket before you walk into the store. That's kind of where you need to be with this. Know how much something is going to cost. That's what you're going to be talking to the shops for. But make sure that you're cool with spending that money. Because in my experience, what I've seen is guys get worked up, they get caught up, they get into the moment, and they end up shelling out way more than their budget will allow. You start telling them, look, this is what the total cost is going to look like. Sometimes there's overruns. If I can save you money, I will. But this is what it's going to cost. and they don't take into account that life happens. Budgeting has got to be part of this, and make sure that you're capable of doing that before you get into this. And by the way, any shop worth their salt is going to start the process like this. You've got a parts budget and you've got a labor budget. Parts are part of the first installment that you're going to pay. You pay for whatever parts are going to be ordered to show up, and you pay for a portion of the labor as a whole. As the project progresses, you're going to be paying for either more parts or the labor as it comes. Do not expect a performance shop to bankroll your entire build only for you to hand them a credit card at the end of the entire show. Cash flow doesn't work like that in a shop. It simply can't work like that in a shop. You're paying these guys as they're working on your vehicle. And as such, you need to work out a properly run shop. Will work out timelines, time frames, when to expect certain stages to be hit, what those stages are going to cost you. And should you choose to pull the plug on the build, you get into a bind, you've paid up, you're square with the shop up to a certain point, and you can either wait to finish the balance of the project afterwards, or if you've gotten to a certain point and let's say you're primarily doing suspension components, well, you can still enjoy the vehicle after that. And then as finances allow, bring the thing back in for other engine work or whatever the case is. But the point that I'm making is this. If you're working with a shop that doesn't put that type of a plan together, what ends up happening is you could potentially run into some serious delays. You haven't paid for anything. Yes, they have your car. But if you haven't paid for anything, there's no operating capital to work on your vehicle. You've got to bankroll it. And again, you cannot expect a shop to do that for you. So that's how the money side of this works. And unfortunately, a lot of guys think that they just show up and I would never pay for something that I have to, you're going to pay for it as it's progressed. And if you don't, the shop wants to try to float it. The issue is that they're going to be robbing money from other projects to try to make yours work, or it's just going to be put on the back burner until they can get to it. Other paying customers are going to be bankrolling their own builds, and so that's why each individual build has its own individual accounting that's associated with it. About the only thing that's going to be blended in a shop might be shop supplies, and that's just a generic, you've got brake cleaner, lubricants, zip ties, and all the rest of the crap that just kind of happen, paper towels, all this stuff, that's shop supplies. You're going to have an amount that's going to go along with your build as well. That's about the only thing that you're not going to be paying directly for as you go. In other words, rarely you might see shop supplies as part of the build on the installment type deal, but usually you just get a final bill and you tally up a percentage of that, like a 2% of the build goes to shop supplies or something like that. But anyway, I want to give you guys at least a certain level of expectation. So let me dive in. Since we've talked a little bit about the money side of it, let's get into you guys real quick. Sovereign saying you got to pay to play. You better believe that. Sovereign saying just give me a Scat Pack Challenger and no mods. Plenty of power out of the box. They are fun. Ryan saying my dad told me new cars, it will be $100 per horsepower, and older to classic hot rods, $1,000 per horsepower for builds. Well, the old adage of $100 per horsepower still holds today. That's pretty common for what you'll see in general. Usually with supercharger builds, it's almost to the money as far as $100 per horsepower. Old school stuff, man, look, oh God. The problem with old school stuff is if we're talking about cars with like 3-speed transmissions and you're just talking about doing like a generic rebuild or something like that, a lot of times those engines have got to come out. It's a nightmare, and so you're spending thousands of dollars. You might spend $3,000 or $4,000 for 0 horsepower gain. I mean, you're just trying to keep the thing on the road. If you're doing a reseal, which is a little bit near and dear to my heart because that's what Foxy may end up needing. That's about a $2,500 job, and you don't get anything out of that. So, it's just a sign of the issue that you have when you run into the old school carbureted 3-speed transmission cars that realistically in today's reality don't blend in. They don't fit in very well. I know a lot of people try to make them work, but good luck on the modern highways with cars that are cruising down the road at 75 to 85 miles per hour. Trying to keep up with that with a 3-speed transmission car in an engine that really only turns like 5,000 RPM, it's not a good look. You got to gear them to a point where they don't even get down the road. It's just, anyway, you kind of see where I'm going with that. But yeah, you're exactly right. $100 per horsepower is very normal. Burden is in. Hello, B in chat. Hello. DM is in. What is up, man? Hey, DM, I was cruising around on the Honda Rebel 250 today. If anybody's viewing this stream on a mobile device, please take a moment to back out of the chat and click that like button. Then hit the notification bell. Yes, thank you, Sovereign. Like, subscribe, and share. Sovereign saying, only 7 likes. Have you seen Paul's new tat? No, I haven't. I have not seen it. For I am without incriminating markings. So getting back to the chat. And again, I'm trying to set, for you guys that may be thinking about getting your car worked on, I'm just trying to give you guys some pointers and also steer you into the reality of having your car worked on at a shop. So we talked a little bit about the money aspect. Number one, make sure you got the money to do this. Don't get in this game. You got to pay to play, like what Sovereign was saying. That's a very real thing. Timeline expectations. Don't try to mod your daily driver. If you don't have a daily to drive, go find you a cash car, some old Japanese shit box that you can just buy and get you back and forth to work that you don't care about. Change oil in it, keep tires on it, and just drive that thing. Don't try to modify your daily, because invariably that ends up being a really bad outcome. I've seen it happen over and over and over again, especially with guys that try to hot rod naturally aspirated cars. It ends up being a mess as a daily. So if you want to have that kind of hot rod, love you for it, but don't expect quick turnaround times. That it gets done when it gets done. And again, like what we talked about in the early part of the chat, when you have timelines that you agree upon, in other words, in 2 weeks, this is going to be done, you're going to owe us X amount of money. In another 2 weeks, this is going to be done, you'll owe us X amount of money. 2 weeks after that, the vehicle will be finished and you'll pay off your balance. This is what it'll cost to get you going. The shop doesn't get paid until they reach those landmarks. It's in their best interest to do so. Again, that's why I say, if a shop's saying, yeah, bring it on in, we'll get started, blah, 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 but they don't put together a time frame and a timeline for you, don't use that shop. Don't think that, I'm just not out this money. Some shady stuff happens in those scenarios. Oh, and to that point, do not go to the shop talking about money and say, these are the parts that I want. This is the part that this is what I'm specifying for my car. Talk to the shop and find out what it is that, if you talk to them about the outcome, we talked about the shops having experience with your vehicle, what has been their experience and what components have they chosen to go with? If you come in there with some cheap ass set of long tube headers, some 5th or 6th hand other parts, some this, that, and everything else, shops aren't going to deal with you. They're going to tell you, look, we get parts from trusted suppliers. They get it wrong about 20% of the time, by the way. So that's part of a timeline that'll wreck your life. Ask me how I know about that. But you deal with trusted suppliers with quality first quality components. The idea that you start getting, unless the shop says, hey man, look, we've got a used supercharger kit that we can vouch for, it's good, we've got this component or that component, whatever, unless it's coming from the shop that you're working with, do not buy cheap stuff and say, I want to use these, Wang Dong headers and I want to use this other cheap component and this, that. A reputable shop will tell you to pound sand with that stuff. Return it, figure out a way to get your money back, because at the end of the build, they've got to stand behind it, at least from the standpoint of build quality. We'll talk about warranties and things like that here in just a bit, but from just the fit, the finish, the way that all the components come together, the shop has to dictate that. I understand that you might find a whale of a deal on Marketplace or whatever. Don't bring that to the shop, because again, it never fails. These parts are contaminated one way or another. They've been manhandled, they've been dented, they've been dinged, they've been bashed up, they've been they're out of whack some way or another. They're not right. And I'm here to tell you guys, we had a guy bring in a nitrous kit and wanted us to install it. And I've told this dude, no, I don't install any outside of the shop electronics. It will not happen. Well, this came off a buddy of mine's, whatever. And I'm going, dude, I don't, if I have to repeat myself, the conversation will be ending, all right? I mean, that'll be the last thing. The guy couldn't understand the why behind it. It's because anytime you're working with used electronics, God only knows what the real history of that product is. Most retail stores will not take back electronics. Once you buy that, it's done. There's no refund on that, and that's another reason why shops won't have anything to do with them if they're used, unless they vouch for them themselves. So, when it comes to that aspect of it, you're going to the shop that you're going to rely on their expertise and their experience. They're the ones that need to dictate the parts that they're buying, not you. You're already going to have a plan. They're going to be the ones that execute it. Let me check in with you guys real quick, and then we will move on to warranty type stuff. Hen Burden, you are now light. Come on, algorithm. Yes, I need some algorithm. Unburdened saying, engines were once explained to me like this. How long do you want it to last? Mods reduce life expectancy. They can. Do you want your candle to burn slowly or burn quickly? Avoid Chinesium alloy parts, please, whatever you do. So, Wang versus Dong. So here's one of the issues that you run into a lot with cheap components. It's the metal that they're put together with. It's like it's pot metal. There's a lot of impurities. There's a lot of sucks that comes with that. And I'm telling you, man, it sucks when people try to buy cheap. It's happened on a lot of occasions where somebody would bring in these cheap components, and it could be the hardware. The pitch of the hardware is off. Try explaining it or figuring that out. Like, why doesn't this bolt go into this other component? Like, why didn't this bolt slide into the cylinder? This doesn't make any. That was one of them. Misaligned stuff like core shifting and things like that. These are the problems that you run into with those subpar products. And so you end up, and by the way, shops get buried on like labor hours, right? And guys will go, oh, well, you're spending $150 an hour. I mean, you can't just like throw in some hours or whatever. No, because I've got that $150 an hour isn't just the tech. It's the tech, the insurance, the lift, the real estate that thing is taking up. It's everything that square footage that it takes up in the shop has to be accounted for. So yeah, anytime there's extra labor on something, you're going to get charged for it. And the crappy parts, especially if you get somebody say, look, this stuff isn't working. I can make the stuff that I know work, and your cheap stuff isn't working. Well, so and so figured out a way to do it. Then come get your shit and tell so and so to install it. We're done. And that has happened with me on one occasion. In fact, it happened just like that. I was so fed up with this one build, and I came into this about halfway through. Somebody allowed some aftermarket cheap Chinese crap in, and customer goes, well, so and so is able to make it work, even when my tech is looking at he's already installed the part that I know is going to work. So and so says it'll work. I said, come get your car and have so and so work on it. We're done. Like, are you serious? I am as serious as fuck. I'm wheeling your shit out in the middle of the driveway. Come get it. And that is we're gonna blend that into attitude and things like that. But this is, again, one of the reasons why, man, you can be as cool as you possibly can be, up to the point where it doesn't pay any more to try to argue. And again, that always comes from subpar products every single time, man. So yep, that's DM saying, yep, that's why I don't turn up the wick on the Hellcat, although it's tempting to tune that trans. Per B, there's a lot of meat on the bone there. Absolutely there is. Man, that's the reason why I didn't go nuts with mine. Listen, I have I've got everything that I would need to have built a mid 9-second easy peasy E85 Hellcat, and it would have probably lasted every bit as long as any other stock Hellcat out there, and I didn't want to do it. It simply wasn't worth it to me. I'd already been down that road with customer car. Just, I've got so many data logs on 1,000 horsepower cars that it almost, I don't want to say that it's boring, but when it's what you do for a living, it's what you do. And it wasn't fun for me. And you'll learn really fast too, by the way, throughout this process of your build, that more isn't always better. And the analogy I tell people is, look, man, I'm going to make you a shit sandwich. Do you want more or less filling, right? That is what can happen when you start to throw crazy money and crazy ideas at a build. It isn't going to be more fun. You're not taming any beast. These builds are out there, and they're out there with they're growing gray hair. I mean, these mid 9-second, even low 9-second Mopar, Mustang, Camaro builds. This is old hat for a lot of folks, and so I mean, yeah, go ahead, we'll build you one, but there's just, you can tell by the way that somebody talks about their background and in racing, if it's even right and responsible. I mean, to put a build like that for some folks. I can tell you this, 99% of the people getting their cars built have no business going past about 600 horsepower at the rear wheel. And a regular Hellcat will put you basically right there, depending on the dyno. That is the honest to goodness limit that I would say, again, about 99% of the folks out there even need to be worrying about. But anyway, let me get back to you. Sorry. My Sunwing LTD drive shaft has structural defects and snapped. Yeah, that happens. DM saying, I heard it said the lazy man has to do the job twice. The same can be said for cheap parts. I don't buy cheap parts. I don't buy used parts anymore either. Not unless I know exactly where they're coming from, or it's like wheels or something like that. I don't do anything like that used anymore. Later, there are too many nuts in my sandwich. Yeah, that was said a lot at the DNC. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, so warranty, what to expect. Um, so hopefully at this stage of the game, you've got your finances in order. You have had the chat with the shop about reasonable expectations and what to expect with this build, with this package. Now, assuming the shop has decided to take on the Sam, I'm looking at an F-150 FP700 short cab lunk bed. That would be badass. Anyway, let me squirrel. One of my favorite builds are the F-150 builds. But provided that the shop's decided to take on your build at this stage, what kind of warranty or what kind of longevity can you expect? And I'll talk about that, and then I'll talk about support. So supercharged applications, if you're running good 93 octane gas, you'll typically be fine. Most tuners will be very conservative with knock sensor voltage, provided that the car does have provisions for that. And they will be fairly conservative on timing. When it comes to naturally aspirated combinations, most tuners, again, are going to try to optimize those, but they will be optimized with a buffer for fuel quality. And in that case, you don't have to worry about longevity. Modern cars are really durable. Even the ones that they go, oh, this like 392s don't like boost. No, they love boost. That's the problem with them. They love them a little bit too much. But provided that you've got the right kind of fuel and provided that you are responsible enough, in reality, your car is going to last as long as any other stock build would, with one caveat. And that is your right foot dictates the length of time that something is going to last, whether it's stock, modified, or wild and crazy. The way that the vehicle is driven, how it's driven, if it's driven responsibly and you're not treating the throttle like a light switch and you're not trying to get away with poor fuel quality, which happens to happen a lot, then really, we've seen supercharged. Well, look at Hellcat's a factory supercharged. 130, 150,000 mile Hellcats. I mean, it's very commonplace. But for aftermarket stuff, 100,000 miles driven on ProCharge cars is not a big deal. It's actually pretty common for guys to get a whole lot of miles, but you got to change your supercharger oil. You got to change the oil in the car. Make sure you're using the right oil. Make sure you're using the right fuel. These are cars that are not tuned for outright maximum horsepower at the rear wheels. We're going to remind me to get into that part of it too. So in that case, yeah, the cars last a long ass time. They'll last as long as a stock car, provided that, again, you're not treating the throttle like an asshole. But you get guys that do that and blow their cars up, and then they want to blame the shop for it. You get guys that will, I can put 87 in it, I'm really not going to be beating on it, and then they roll into boost and pop a piston. The list goes on and on. This is why, no matter how good the build is, there is no warranty. There is no standing behind the build. It ain't going to happen. There's too many mitigating factors that the shop knows. Look, there is nothing that the shop is going to do to your vehicle that is going to, a reputable shop, keep in mind, again, this is the first thing off the bat, the reputable shop is not going to put something together that's going to fall apart. These guys do this for a living. Yours is not the first. It ain't the last that they're going to do. They've got this stuff down to a science. Hard parts don't fail unless there is a significantly good reason for it. And usually, again, it's fuel quality, poor maintenance, and driving the thing like an idiot. Those are the things that'll cause the problem. You've got use, misuse, and abuse. MDEs, mechanical design engineers, will put together products for that purpose. When you get outside of those parameters, use, misuse, and abuse shifts way far to the right, and regular use constitutes abuse, depending on the type of build. So just know that coming into this. Yes, the thing will last a long time provided that it's got the right amount of care and feeding and all of that. And if I forget something, if I say, yeah, we're going to come back to that, and I don't, just say, hey, you forgot something, so I'll remember, because I'll, ADHD strikes again. Ask your doctor if a heavy foot is right for you. Ask your pocketbook if a heavy foot is right for you. Glacian, good evening, B. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for coming back into the show, my friend. I'm saying, I've seen guys that have never had a performance guy in their life, but they are now looking to have a 1,000 horsepower car. Ron, let me tell you something, buddy. You have no idea what it's like. Okay, so Ron, thank you for you sprung a memory for me. The shop guy doesn't care about your build. They're not as excited as you are about the build that you're going to put together. This is the point that I'm getting to. You get a lot of people that have never had a very fast car. And when I say very fast, I mean anything over, say, 500 or 600 horsepower. That's very freaking fast, okay? But the thing is that these people have never had that. They've got a buddy of theirs, and they rode in their really quick BMW one time, and I want to... No. It is a whole different story when you start building more and more power into a car, and these guys have never experienced anything like that before. We had a car at Pikes that was a customer car that was kind of in like a long-term storage type of a situation. And I would take it out every once in a while and just drive it. It wasn't even for data logging. It wasn't for anything. It was just, look, the thing's got to be exercised. E85 6-speed car, Bravo package. It was a really fun, it is the way that a 6-speed car should have come from the factory. It put down just the other side of 800 horsepower to the rear tires. And but such a fun car, man. As an aside, some of my most favorite cars to drive were never the fastest. They weren't the record-setting cars that we built. They were the ones that were just badass automobiles. They're not going to win any roll races, and but they're gonna win the put smiles on your faces races, and that's all I cared about. And that's what this car kind of did. And we had a guy, and it was at that point. Realistically, it was basically just a shop car. The guy's like, just drive it, run it, do whatever. I'll come get it whenever. I think the car was there for almost 2. Anyway, the guy goes, well, I want to. He was wanting to get a Bravo package build, like Racer X's old Excessive was. Did a whole lot of those cars, and like, yeah, sure, let's. I've never ridden in something that fast though. Like, well. It's almost lunch. Hop in this thing. And we ran it on, it just sat on drag radials. That dude screamed like a little girl when I hit 4th, going from 3rd to 4th gear. And I just kind of stayed in it. And it was kind of funny. It was the first time I ever heard a grown man squeal like that. And I'm telling you, and this car to me wasn't fast. In fact, I had even offered to buy this car on a couple of different occasions. It was really pretty black 6-speed car. And truth be told, if I could get my hands on another Hellcat, it might be a 6-speed. It might, instead of trying to get records and all this other crap, which isn't crap, don't get me wrong, I love it. But, just a 3.0 pulleyed, not quite as fast as that car, but just something kind of fun. Anyway, I'm kind of running off here. The fact of the matter is that if you've never ridden in something that's that powerful, you've got no business driving something that's that powerful. When things get weird with high horsepower cars, they get weird in a very fast fashion. And knowing what to expect. Most of driving one of the faster cars is actually thinking about a half second ahead when you're rolling into the throttle, knowing and already having the experience of how this car is going to react. A lot of people don't realize how fast you will pick up speed, even with fairly, I'm not going to say mild, but they are mild by comparison builds. A car that will go from 60 to 130 in like 7 seconds is something that most people have never experienced. That's not a super fast car. So anyway, that guy squealed, and I thought it was hysterical. He changed his tune pretty quickly. Hellcat guy changed his tune pretty quickly, and got a 295 package, basically a Charlie package. Very fast car, by the way. It will still run nines, but it's not, it's not a 950 car. It's a 990 car, and there is a world of difference between a 950 and a 990 car when it comes to power output and what it's going to act like. But once you get into that level, though, man, just know that you don't have, you can't have the expectation that that car is now going to be that fun, enjoyable, neat, buddy car that you used to have. I mean, it's like you just sent your happy, fluffy little German Shepherd off to, obedience school, and the thing came back a really pissed off guard dog. And that's what you have to be able to expect. Except in this case, you can't pull on the leash if something goes wrong. Things go wrong, it gets wrong and gets hairy really fast. And okay, I quit counting at 8 how many cars that I took to the drag strip for guys, just so I could go, here's your time slip. Or somebody calls me up and goes, hey, can you meet me at the drag strip? We're trying to get a number out of this thing. No problem. I'd go down there, drive for him, and it was like 8 or 9. And after that, I did it more. I kept doing it. So yeah, it happens to happen a lot. And guys will get scared of what they've put together. And that's why most people end up just getting rid of the car. You see them sold on and they move on to, Jeeps or Broncos or something else that, isn't insane when it comes to power. Because let's be real, these cars are insanely fast. I mean, I can't explain to you. They're extremely fast, talking about the Mopars, but they're unimaginably stable. And so there's never the sense of fast when it comes to those cars. It's weird in that respect. But you can park a Charger or a Challenger. Charger is even more so. You can park a Charger at about 170 miles an hour and get bored with it. I mean, it'll just roll at 170, 180 too, now that I'm thinking about it. Although 180 I didn't hold for very long. But 170, yeah, just whoosh, you're going down the road. They are so stable and they will carry speed so well. And you don't get the sense of speed out of it. And that's, if I did have any problem with the Mopars, is that there's the sense of danger is really well masked by very heavily engineered stability into those cars. Anyway, I'm getting way off the mark here. I'm just talking about all kinds of stuff. See what I mean? That'll happen. It's live. What can I say? Hard Rock is in. Good evening. Clay's asking, what is your overall opinion of the current state of Stellantis and the possibility of BYD buying Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and Jeep? If BYD will do something with the brand, and that is only with the assumption that there is a change politically that will allow for it, then I mean, at this stage of the game, I guess everything's got a price tag and everything's for sale. Right now, I'm not a player on anything that's made by Stellantis. I had hella problems with my Ram, my 2022 Ram 1500 with build quality issues. it's bad enough as it is as an FCA product because, Mercedes. But I am not, I don't, if there is a sale, again, there's going to have to be policy changes. There's going to have to be a completely different political environment for that, that acquisition or that changing of hands to have any effect on me, because I have checked out of Stellantis products as it sits as of today. Sovereign's checking in with Hard Rock. Like I said, I think what Stellantis is doing to their employees is absolutely terrible, especially when it comes to negotiating contracts with UAW. Well, yeah, it is pretty rough. They shut down Brampton. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with that. I haven't really been keeping up with the ins and outs with Dodge. Like I say, mentally, I just kind of turn that switch off. But I can tell you this. Dodge is going to have a lot more of that coming its way if the initial feeling, I should say, if the initial, what am I trying to say here? The feedback for the EVs has any indication as far as what that whole climate looks like. They're releasing EVs instead of releasing the six-pack cars. That, to me, is a major issue. By the way, I've got this monster splinter in my finger that I'm trying to dig out of here while I'm talking to you guys. That's also the reality. If you can see it, I got a big old jacked up head over here. I was clearing some brush and caught a log up to the side of my head. It was pretty funny. But yeah, that's what we're working on. I can tell you this, guys. They're going to have a lot more problems labor-wise if they don't get their act together and start building products that people are going to want to buy. They're not going to have any problems with labor if they're not building any cars anymore. And so it's an ugly state of affairs that we're in. Had we received the V8 variant that we were promised back in 2019, and if Stellantis, or really FCA, would have released their STLA small platform, which was the small EV city car platform about 3 years ago when that was promised, then we might still have vehicles to talk about. But so far, guys, I'm sorry to tell you, but again, nothing is really worth talking about right now. And you can say, well, the new Charger is going to have the high output six-cylinder when that thing hits. Okay, but look at what it's going to cost. Look at the price tag. Look at how much that thing is going to set a buyer back. That's going to be a $75,000 or $80,000 car. And listen, we're all over it. We're done. It doesn't matter how much power the thing makes if you can't afford it. Guys, we're talking about cars. It's now, if you want to bring the EVs into the conversation, then go ahead. But now it doesn't matter if it's a base model or the high output or whatever. We're talking about cars that nobody can afford. Okay, nobody can afford these. And if you've got the money to afford them or to buy them, these aren't the cars that you're buying. If you've got $80,000 and you're an EV buyer, you buy a Plaid, don't you? I mean, you're going to buy a Plaid. You're not going to buy this Dodge thing that's basically half the power in its highest output variant at the same price. You're just not going to do that. So that's the issue that I see. You're not going to be able to convince buyers of vehicles in that price range that that vehicle is worth the money that you're going to spend. Now, take that logic, move it over to the six-pack cars. If that's a $70,000 car, guys, there are a lot of vehicles out there that you can get for in and around $70,000 that aren't the Charger. And I hate to say it, but it looks like a sophomoric effort when it comes to the final product, the final design of it. So to me, they've got their heads on backwards. They need to be releasing the Hurricane 6 cars, get those out there so that people can experience them. And then those that want EVs, which is a much smaller slice of the pie, give them that thing. Don't try to float the EVs out there, because guys, I'm telling you, you're going to have EVs rotting on lots. Why not give the folks the car that they want? Why not give the people the product that they would actually spend the money on? And listen, speaking of that topic, I am not a player on one of the new Turbo 6 cars. It isn't going to happen. They're going to cost too damn much money, number one. And number two, I'm not going to get any traction on the channel with doing draggy hits on a Hurricane 6 Charger. I would get, I'll put it like this. I could go rent one, or I could go test drive one, do all like the guerrilla warfare style videos off of one car in one day, which would basically just be one draggy hit or a couple of draggy hits, post that up and not have to buy the car. Here's what it'll do. Cheers, because you can't tune them yet. That operating system hasn't been cracked, and the best you can hope for is a piggyback. I wouldn't touch tuning that thing with a 10-foot pole, though, because it's already running obnoxious numbers when it comes to boost. We've already seen that with the Wagoneer. Impressive as that vehicle is with the H06, which I am on record as being shocked by the performance of that thing. But it's already running obnoxious numbers there, and you would have to, the only way that I would even start to touch that thing, like not even lay a finger on it tuning wise, is if it were completely converted to E85, because of the number of, just the boost number. It's a 2-bar car, guys. It's like just shy of 30 pounds of boost from the factory. Holy moly, that's a lot of boost. So no, not probably going to happen in that case either. Oh, Clay saying, and I've totally lost faith in Stellantis and their abilities of what they are doing. General Motors and Ford Motor Company are poised to get customers from Dodge. Oh, gosh, yeah, no. They've already got one. Look, if I were to do another build, you want to know what it would be? If I were to do another build, I'm building an F-150. It would be a 4-wheel drive Coyote truck, and it would just get an exhaust and a supercharger, a drop, wheels, and tires. Have a nice day. And I would do it right out of the Ford Racing Performance Parts catalog, and have me a super duper quick pickup truck that I could do whatever kind of dumb screwery that I wanted to do with it, and who cares? At the end of the day, it's a pickup truck. It's a badass vehicle. It's fun, and it's practical. Wow, look at that. And I would build my new version of a Lightning out of it, and I would put something together that would run, I don't know, 1080s, 1090s, and just have a ball with it, and that would be it. Skids is in. What's up, man? Good evening. Team say Ford just spanked Tavares backing out of the EV game. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Ford CEO was running a Cobra at one of these vintage race car events. I think he took first place with this thing. Anyway, the point is that's the difference between people that are real racers, leadership that is a true car guy, leadership that is a true racer's mentality type, and a whatever kind of trash is running Stellantis. That's your difference. And it's why I'm so pro Ford now. I mean, I've always been a Ford guy, sort of. My background is with Fords. I had a lot of background with Dodges, but in terms of just wrenching on things, Dodge was out of the game by the time I was old enough to really dive into this kind of stuff, and Ford was there, and that's who I learned from was Ford and Ford engineer guys. I don't know what the Gallo stuff is. Help me out. Help me to know. Chaotic's in. Would the AFE Momentum GT intake be worth a crap for a 22 Durango RT? Yeah. I mean, they're not bad. I think the Durango, if I remember correctly, that airbox is tiny. Anything that gets you more volume out of that is going to be good. Goldfish did the 16 tooth front sprocket on the Z this week. Very pleased. I have an extra one of those laying around, by the way. Thank you. I will send the ECU to Ivan soon. Hope you're doing well. I am. Tell Ivan I said hello. You will not be disappointed with that. He does a hell of a good job with the Z1s. You will be very pleased with that. You know, somebody was asking me, do I wish I had that bike back? I really like the Kawasaki a whole lot. If I had a regret with it, it would be this. I should have done a Yoshimura pipe with the stock can. But if there would be any way to have like an R11 Yoshimura style exhaust on that bike, it would have made a world of difference for just the quality of riding. But no, a 16 tooth front sprocket with the stock stuff, man, you're going to have a ball with it. Just let her rip. You'll love it. How do I say, my 21 Charlie Scat stays well planted at highway speeds, but you're IB, you don't even realize you're going to jail speeds. Yeah, I mean, you're losing your license kind of speeds at that point. So I'm saying I've had high torque but never had high horsepower. I think people need to drive pickups. You can learn fast on a wet road quickly with an empty bed. Don't ask, don't tell. That's how I learned on oil field roads in the old Dodge pickup truck. So, and my granddad, control the skid. That's how I learned. I mean, you know, that's how a lot of us, you know, there was a time where you could get, it still is in a way out there, but there was a time where you could get away with that kind of stuff. And you've got to learn how to do that. And there's no real good way to do it, except you got to break some laws sometimes. Goldfish, have you ever ridden the GSXR 750? My man, I have got so many laps at Thunder Hill on my old GSXR 750. Yes, sir, I have. I used to own one. If so, in terms of ergonomics, taking into consideration it's a sport bike, is it comfortable? It's one of the more comfortables. Suzuki does a heck of a good job with the GSXR 750, the GSXR 1000. They do a very good job of building a bike that is suited for somebody that's around 5'10" to 6'2", or really 5'8" to 6. Well, 5'9", really more like 5'10" to 6'2". So in terms of ergonomics, it's really good by comparison. Comfort is a subjective thing, but I've got a lot of miles on a GSXR 750. And I would say that of the middleweight sport bikes, if you're going for something with a full fairing, you could definitely do worse. But in terms of the price point, there are some nakeds that are out there that are really good. Again, it just depends on what you're going for, depends on the riding experience that you're looking for and the aesthetic. But bikes that I have really liked that are kind of in that range, that 120-ish horsepower to the rear wheel range, or at least I know it's rated at 150, but there are certain realities that come into play. Of the bikes that are in that class, I think it's the best in terms of ergonomics that I've had the opportunity to ride. And the rest of them would all be naked middleweights, and those are kind of hard to compare. Oh, Clay's saying, yeah, the new Charger is going to be in BMW territory. Yeah. DM saying GSXR 750, amazingly good bike, super Goldilocks status. Yeah. So mine, I had an 06. Had a Yoshimura R11 exhaust, tuned power commander, quick throttle inserts. Sato adjustable rear sets, some filter, whatever the filter was that was in it. One down, two up on the gearing, and that was, and I could run the short course at T Hill in third gear, like just run laps. The only time I'd have to go into fourth, well, no, sometimes I get up to the top of fourth and maybe into fifth was on the front straight. But yeah, really good bike, really good bike. And that bike on NorCal Cycles dyno put down 132. Oh, it had a GSXR 600 exhaust cam in it also. And, but yeah, I put down 132 or 133, and that's with the gearing. It was a good run in GSXR 750. There's times where I kind of wish I had that bike back. Sam's, you're right. What we need is a Geo Metro, not a $70,000 paperweight, for sure. Clay saying, better yet, they could have done this, release the Dodge Challenger with that 426 V8 they had. The problem with displacement is that it just absolutely wrecks partial throttle fuel economy. Plus, there's not, there can be some issues with durability. The 426, it's still a small block. What I was hoping for was that we were supposed to have, and it was either a 5.2 or a 5.5 liter Coyote equivalent that they were working on. And this thing caught, even Steve Mignate was talking about this at one point, and that would have been ideal. And it just never materialized. But had that engine made it, that would have been about a 440 horsepower in the truck variant and would have been about a 525 horsepower in a car variant, just as a pedestrian engine with an upside that had been obnoxious. And you could have used it the same way that Ford used their modular stuff. You could have put that 5.5 liter could have gone in Durangos. It could have gone in whatever will hold a V8, it could have gone in, and it would have been great. It would have been awesome. Plenty of power, lots of fuel economy, and lots of upside if they'd have built it right, and they obviously didn't. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that would have been sweet if they'd have done it. Oh, Skids, yeah, the Roush. I know that Roush has an option for the 24s, but they're also EPA capable, sanctioned, approved in that respect. So, Martin said, it's hilarious to me that a company attempting to move to the efficiency agenda direction fails to produce a single vehicle under 5,000 pounds. Oh, that's so true, Dave. That is so very true. Oh, Clay saying Dodge had an opportunity to make the SRT Challenger or Charger SRT Ghoul. Well, that was a lot of the Ghoul thing was a lot more. It was like rumor. It wasn't a real thing. And what that turned into was the Demon 170. But the thing is with that, the Demon 170 is nothing new to us in the aftermarket. We've been building that. I mean, that's what Excessive was. It's just an E85, and it's had the stock blower on it. Didn't have to use a 3-liter IHI, and I was even talking to IHI at one point about that supercharger. I was asking them, do you need a vehicle for development? I was going to offer up Revlon as a development vehicle for that. It got nowhere past the discussion phase. It just never happened. But I was in the talking, if that doesn't mean anything, but in other words, I was in the chatter for a development vehicle for that blower, and that was, God, that was years ago. That was about 3 years ago. And IHI was going to bring that to market on their own. That's why that whole chat got started. Clay saying Ram should bring back the Dakota and they should bring back the Ram Charger. Yes, I agree with that 100%. 2 and 4 door configuration with a manual and automatic configuration powered by a Cummins diesel or a V8. I would love to see a diesel variant of that. I don't know that you would. Well, the Dakota you would maybe see a manual. I would love to see that though. And a small diesel in the Dakota and or some type of a V8, anything would be awesome. But yeah, the Ram Charger not being around sucks. Sam, yes, that's the FP700. Also comes with a factory warranty as long as you get it installed at a Ford dealership. Can't really beat that. 50 to 55K for a 700 horsepower truck with 4-wheel drive, and they are nasty quick. Make no mistake about it. Oh, yeah, Ducati is making a move away from the Panigale. They're replacing it with a 937 version, same as my 950 SS. I'm thinking those won't compete. Well, I know that, yeah, the V2. Yeah, the Panigale, which is a phenomenal motorcycle, but again, okay, so for you guys, what we're talking about is motorcycles here. The cool thing about the Panigale is that it is a direct line of sight, head-to-head competitor for the likes of like a GSX-R 750. The problem is it's kind of expensive for what it is. It's a hell of a motorcycle though, and it's a I don't know, it's just a they're looking to kind of move away from that and go a little bit smaller and less aggressive with power in the V-twins, which is a bummer. Goldfit, the transmission on the Z900 RS is really bad. Yes, you're exactly right. I totally understand why you exchanged it for the Katana. Beautiful bike too. Hey, listen, don't get rid of your Z900 RS. Get a oh crap, if I still had it, I'd just send it to you. Get a shift shaft stabilizer. It's super easy to install. You just have to remove your shifter lever, and this is a bushed thing that goes over it and bolts into the stock location, and then you just put your deal back on. And what it does is it keeps, like, if you want to think of this as an expanded version of that thing, when you shift and you're putting pressure on it, that there's not a bushing right here that keeps that shifter shaft. It's a shifter shaft support. So if you want, just Google Z900 RS shifter shaft support. If you can get the one that has the bearing. The bearing is going to be better. It's going to come with the grease. I'm sorry, I can't remember the dang name of it, the one that I put on mine. But get one of those. Don't get the solid bushing. Because you'll forget to grease it. It's a little bit tighter tolerance, but it's going to wear out. It's going to wear in quicker. Get the bearing. You'll thank me for this. And that weird 5-6 shift clunkiness will go away. It doesn't go away. It's mitigated a whole lot, but it's the shifter shaft support. Anyway, what it'll do is when you it's super easy to install. The minute you see it, it's 2 bolts that hold the thing on there. And it'll come with the hardware. Just get one and you'll thank me. It'll make the bike a lot better. Sam said, I miss my Honda ATC. I've got the what is it? Well, hell, I had the thing over here for it. What is it, 200SX? Whatever it is. Clay saying Chrysler should have brought back the Roadrunner, call it Plymouth Roadrunner by Chrysler. They should have done a lot of stuff like that. It's going to say, now my bad, the 955 V2, but they are moving away from that engine. Guess we'll see. It feels like the SS 950 already good with a softer Panigale, and that might be what they're doing to kind of get a little bit more market share for Ducati, because one of the issues, the Panigale is such a great bike, but it's 150 horsepower. It's not 170 horsepower, and it's 150 horsepower out of a V twin, which is to say that to the rear tires, it's not really putting down the number, and it's flat. Chris, buddy of mine, was talking to the guy at one of the dealerships that owned one of those bikes. Said he absolutely loved it as a motorcycle, as a tool, but as something that is exciting, or what, it wasn't there. It's one of those things where there just wasn't a crescendo to it. Oh, big shout out to Chris too. Hooked me up with an M4 muffler for the Katana, just a slip on, because I'm not doing full exhaust or anything like that on the Cat. There's no reason for it. But the weird thing, talking about the bikes, the weird thing about the Katana with the full exhaust, with reset, with the just slip on, it wiped out about 80% of the buzziness of that engine at like highway cruise speeds, like between like 90 and 110 cruise speeds. Super smooth now by comparison to what it was before. It's still a 4-cylinder, so you'll have the secondary vibration there, but it's nothing like what it was before. And the only difference is that I put that M4 that Chris gave me. So big shout out to him. And I have gone back, I've ridden it, I've tried to make sure that it wasn't a placebo effect. And I parked it at about 105 miles per hour for a couple of miles, just to, like, am I dreaming this up? Is this what I'm, like, is this real? Dang right it was real. And it saved about 2.5 pounds off the bike. So Skid's saying, yeah, Clay, they should have done something. You can thank the board at CT at Stellantis. I don't hold this against Tim Kuniskis. He was an unwilling participant. Yeah, that is true. Oh, Skid's hanging out with Sam. Paul mentioned in a recent video that someone who used to work for Rivian is now working for Stellantis. That makes it even worse. Oop. Oh, Clay, yeah, let me tell you something. The 7.3, man, I was wrong about that engine. That is a freaking amazing engine. Kids, what will that do? You want to jump from one train wreck to another? Yep. Sam's liking the Honda Pioneer 1000. Oh, what happened here? Handles well, like it. Oh, Skids is digging the Cowie side-by-side. Good times. Great fire roads and trails. I love that. Yeah, I like any of that stuff. I have a ball with, man. I don't really, like, I don't have any kind of a like a love or a hate for any brand when it comes to motorcycles in particular. I have been getting pieced up as far as, you know, what my thoughts are on the whole Harley Davidson thing. That, you know, anyway, I don't really want to get into that on this video. It's a topic for another video, but yeah, I've got some thoughts on that you might not expect me to have. Some of y'all that know me have been around the show long enough probably know where I'm going to go with that, but it's saying Ryan Max up. But like I say, I don't. Anyway, let me get back to the topic that we were talking about. So, where was I? Last we were talking about with the shop thing was warranty. We talked a little bit about that. Managing expectations is the biggest part. Oh, here's the other thing. One of the things that would get annoying is people say, well, so-and-so on their, said that this is worth X number of horsepower to the rear wheels. I want to make 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels. Or I want to make 500 horsepower to the rear wheels. It's funny because when you work in a shop, there's a lot of bullshit that you have to try to negotiate and navigate. And other shops' claims are one of the hardest to get out of people's head. Like they'll hear something and then it becomes doctrine. It's like canon at that point. And you've got to try to reel that in without bad mouthing the other shop, but the reality is what they're putting out there is bullshit, and reeling in folks to what are the realities for what it is that they're dealing with. This happens a lot with NA packages. Supercharged stuff, not so much, but NA guys are really hung up on a power number. And I can't tell you how many times I've even told guys, look, take that car, take it to that dyno, have them run it on that dyno if you want to get their results, their equivalent results. And even then, because as the guy that ran the dyno, several different types of dynos over the years, people go, oh, the different dynos read differently. The same dyno reads differently. The same dyno can read differently from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, even if the car is still strapped to it. All right, there are variables that are in play, and they're all dealing with atmosphere. There's cooler temperatures and correction factors can conspire to just wreck things for you when it comes to what the outcome ends up being on the screen. And so, and there's ways to manipulate it, and oh my gosh, it's just a flippin' nightmare. I lost 3 days of my life dealing with one customer in particular on a cammed package that ended up being, the car, it was a scat pack, ended up running 1070s in kind of crap weather. The guy was complaining about the number that was put into the rear tire. And I'm going, dude, that dyno is wrong. Well, I've known this guy for 19, anyway, I was losing my mind with this dude. And finally I just said, look, take it to the track, run it. That's the only dyno that you need to be worrying about. Dynos don't mean anything to me. And, is it more cam? Yes. Is it a better intake? Yes. Does the tune look good? Does the data look good? Then it's faster. Anyway, long story short, this thing went like a 1078, and I can't believe the car is this fast and doesn't make the power. And I'm like, there is no way to tell you how stupid you are, because you won't comprehend it. Like, this is somebody so dumb that they don't even know how dumb they have no idea how stupid they are. It's like, yeah, okay, man, you're right. 2 + 2 = 12. Cheers, my friend. I'm done arguing with people. And that is, by the way, the customer that kind of shook me of how I dealt with people, because it got to a point where it was a symptom of a much larger problem, and I was the problem. Like, I would talk to these people and I would tell them the reality of the situation. They wouldn't want to hear the reality of the situation when it comes to dyno numbers. And I would the reason why I was the problem is, I guess I didn't set the expectations the right way. Like, we are not give you a pretty number dyno place. People would bring I put down over 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels. They bring their car to our shop and it goes like 826. It's like, yeah. Wowzers. Whoop-de-doo. The thing is, and I would tell people, I own whatever micro record meant something at the time. I owned it. I think, all the ones that were worth owning at some point or another. And my cars were always the lowest power on the dyno. So, anyway, go figure. Oh, Sam, a bit hard. Yeah, DCT is a bit more robust. Yeah, I don't like belt style transmissions on anything if I can get away from it. Dynos are just numbers on a screen. That is it. Y'all seen the new Scout and Scout 101? Looks badass. Heard Lloyd's Garage has tuning for those. That would be pretty sweet. Yeah, Sam saying I don't shoot for a number. Yeah, just shoot for how the thing feels and how the thing drives, man. The number, if you get caught up in numbers, man, it'll mess with your head. I quit worrying about number. All I'm looking for is it healthy? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? The number itself, I've been broken of that habit a long time ago. All right, said I've beaten cars that are faster on paper with my Scat. Used to do that all the time. Ryan saying Scout 101, tell me more. Oh, Terminator, yeah, they can manipulate power on a dyno. Yeah, and even if they're not trying to manipulate, on a Mustang dyno, the weather station, there's a motherboard in the blue box, and I replaced that motherboard that drives the weather station. I replaced that thing 3 different times. A screwed up weather station data will throw out crazy numbers. In fact, the customer I was telling y'all about, that dyno had a jacked up weather station, and that's what was coughing out these low numbers with a ridiculous, it was pumping out the right number, but with a ridiculous correction factor. And if you were to put the correction factor back in, the car was making badass power. I tried to explain that. Well, that's not what the sheet says. Like, we're done. Then the guy tried to, then he wanted me to drive the car for him, and I was like, no, I'm not coming anywhere near you or that car or anything. I'm out. Right, I'm gonna have to. I love the. It is the bikes is an addiction thing. It is big time an addiction. Oh yeah, Clay, you're exactly right about people wanting to park their ass on a dyno. I've had guys. Oh well, I guess getting to it. I mean, we're getting a little bit long in the tooth on the show. We're about to wrap it up, but so I'll finish this by saying. I'll finish the show by saying this. Getting back to the original topic. Don't worry about dyno numbers. If dyno numbers are what you're looking for. Any shop can manipulate the dyno to read whatever it wants. It's super easy. All you have to do is go into the settings on the dyno and manipulate the atmospheric conditions. And you can tell it that you're at a barometric pressure of, whatever the base is. I think usually it's 28.8, I think is the lowest. You can say you're at 29 millimeters of atmospheric pressure, and the temperature is 130 degrees outside, and you'll put a number on the dyno. Trust me on that. But the reality is that the dyno number it's only relevant on that dyno on that day in that moment, as long as air fuel looks good, and you've done timing sweeps and you've fallen within the right range. The car is consistent with the power that it makes. There's nothing that is wrong with the car, then it's making the right amount of power for the build. And for guys that get really eaten up with dyno numbers, that have no other way to quantify the power or the performance of the vehicle, meaning they're not doing draggy hits or they don't have a local drag strip that they can see the improvement, the only thing that they have are the dyno sheets to live by. And that, oh my gosh, that is such a thing. Again, guys will just want to sit around and talk about that. I don't know. I get it. I understand. You want to see results. You want to see where your money's been spent. I wholeheartedly understand all of that. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. The number is going to be about what the number is going to be. Don't worry about it. As long as it's healthy and it falls within a range, that's fine. And if your car makes 500 horsepower and your buddy's makes 495, your car doesn't make more power than his. It just means that whatever variance was in play between then and now is in the works, right? So, and vice versa. If your buddy's car makes 5 more horsepower, that doesn't matter. Again, it's within the noise of how that thing reads. So, but with that, guys, I am just about to wrap it up. Oh, skids, yeah. And the only reason why I get the bike dyno to make sure it's running perfect. I mean, that's the only reason why the Katana is going to be on the dyno is when it gets the tune, is just to make sure that everything is healthy. And once everything's healthy, that's all I care about. And yeah, as long as you're having fun, man, that's the most important thing. Yeah, Clay, they'll literally blow the engine up. Yes, they do. 1,200 foot-pounds in the rain will. But anyway, guys, yeah, as long as you're having fun, that's what it is all about. If you get wrapped up, I'll end it with this. If you get wrapped up if you get lost in the sauce, you're not having fun. And that's the most important part. Any shop is going to tell you, look, we're here to have a good time. We're here to make sure that you're having a good time. Make sure you're not putting yourself or the vehicle in a position where it's going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. Work within your own limitations. Be honest with yourself. And when I say limitations, I mean budgetary, skill set, reality of where you live and all of that. And your build will be a blast. But with that, guys, I do have to wrap it up. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. Get out there and do something cool for somebody, because chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, that is a wrap. Y'all have a great one. Catch you on the next one. Adios.